So moving on to our first story. Kids in schools where they're required to be by law, and they're treated in some ways worse than prisoners. In fact, this guy on Twitter asked for parents to share the restrictions being placed on their kids in school, and let me tell you, as the headline in front of me states, the replies are heartbreaking, and they are so bad. Let's just get into this. So last week, and this is the week of December 13th, so before Christmas, last week viral video went out of a school in Oregon where kids were forced to isolate outside on buckets in 40-degree weather in order to eat their lunch. It is awful. You can Google this. It's very easy to find, and it sucks. You see them out there in the freezing cold, and it's like, it's miserable. It's miserable. But it gets worse. So Justin Spiro is a school social worker and an advocate for loosening restrictions on children during COVID, and asked Twitter to tell the stories of the rules, restrictions, and punishments that students are facing in the name of fighting COVID. So I actually checked this guy's Twitter page out, and I get the feeling that he has the right priorities, but maybe the wrong path. See, he, or at least his online persona, does seem to truly care about the mental health of kids, and how schools, closing schools are forcing these COVID restrictions, which, according to this data that we talked about earlier, these things make no sense. Can have an abject detrimental effect on these kids. However, his thesis is that having kids in government schools without restrictions is what's needed for their development and best well-being. And as we have talked about before and later tonight, that's maybe not the right case. The school system is very much broken. But that's not the point of this segment. Again, we will talk about it later. But let's take a look at some of these things. So a lady whose handle is at MGElizabethX says, sending a TK kid, 4 or 5 years old, to office for mask slips and threatening to send the virtual learning for third violation. She says, have a 5-year-old and obviously his first semester in formal educational setting, receiving an email from the school principal that he violated mask policy twice so far. Yeah, because he's 4 to 5. He doesn't need it. He can't wear it properly. If a third violation occurs, he will be forced to enroll in virtual academy online. Yes, because while 4 and 5-year-olds are great at at technology, a lot better than I was at 4 or 5, and certainly a lot better than some other people, maybe school for them at age 4 and 5 is not the best thing. We feel the school has been hostile to our little kiddo due to eloping behavior, leaving the classroom. I think they're using the policy to remove him from on-site education, which would be worse. Trying to work with the school, but has been a challenge. I mean, you heard of this 3 strikes policy. Marcus, were you able to hear all of that?
Yeah, I heard most of it.
What do you think about it?
I think that I think it's a little wrong to try to send the kid to the house because this is the first time going to school, and because he's taking his mask off. Kids don't like wearing a mask. So,
kids hate wearing a mask
while you may want them to wear them, you have to stay on them. I mean, it's a part of it that they're a kid. It's something new to them. You have to stay on them. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. You want them to wear it, whatever, that's part of their society, but don't punch a kid for being a kid.
Well, first off, kids don't have the self-masochism to keep their mask on above their nose all day, and so of course they let it slip below their nose because they want to breathe clean air. Like, people that it was normal for people to want to breathe clean air before March of 2020. But another thing, kids, and especially 4 and 5-year-olds, but kids up until they're in their 13, 14, 15, these masks that they are wearing, these surgical masks, N95K, and bless you. You just completely derailed me, brother.
I'm so sorry.
Anyways, these kids, especially at 4 and 5 years old, The masks are not made for their face. So it does nothing. These huge, wide open gaps on the front and on the back, and it all goes out. It's not useful. But no one wants to think about that. Another thing is they get yelled at for this. Grown adults are yelling at 4 and 5-year-olds for not wearing masks. I know it sounds like I'm laughing. I am not laughing on purpose because this is awful. And it does another thing. It breeds distrust and dislike of teachers, which on the face value might not be a bad thing because, what is it that several shows ago, there was the stat that like 1 in 10 kids will be either sexually harassed or assaulted by a teacher before. It might have even been 1 in 5, which is just awful. So distrust of teachers may not be the worst thing, but it also breeds distrust of actual legitimate authority of their lives. Their mother, their father, if he's in the house. It's really bad having adults yell at kids at 5 years old for not wearing a mask. Like, it's just not a good thing. You agree? Marcus?
Sorry, I had myself muted for eating, but I agree. Kids are gonna be kids, They're not gonna be perfect. They're not gonna
we shouldn't expect them to be.
Always. No, you shouldn't. They're not always gonna follow the rules. They're not always gonna do everything right. They're kids, for God's sake. They're growing up. They don't need to yell at them because they don't like the way the mask feels or anything like that. I mean, if you're gonna make them wear it, bear with them. It's so hard for them. They don't like it. It's new to them.
Just be glad they're trying, because
at least they're trying. So there's no waiting and kids so hard that's so young who's experiencing something new for the time over that small. I mean, if you want to wear it.
Marcus, I'm sorry. We're getting like every third word of yours. I hate it. I really wish we could hear what you're saying. But yeah. So yeah. Anyways, hate to cut you off there, really do, but I cannot hear anything you're saying. So I'm going to keep going. 5 minutes of recess, a lady named Melanie. 5 minutes of recess taken away if your mask slips off your nose in 3rd grade. So more on this later, but real quickly, this is a major problem with the way schools are set up now. You have an 8-year-old, boy or girl, but especially a boy, who is brimming with energy and vigor and youth. And you tell them to sit in a chair for 7 or 8 hours a day. Maybe 6 or 7 if you have a full hour PE class. But still, 7 hours in the same seat. The only other break is you get these 15 to 30 minutes to go out and be a kid, to play, to have fun with your friends. And this is the 15 to 30 minutes of recess they get every day. And you want to take that vital time away because a mask slips for an 8-year-old? A mask that's probably not built for his face, that's not sculpted for his or her face, just in general? Now, draw what conclusions you want from that, but if you believe that that is right, please don't have kids. They deserve better parents. I said what I said. And the bad thing is, if your kids have special needs, it already is much harder for these kids. But when you get into masks and COVID in schools, it's so much worse. So this is from Ari. My 6-year-old is not allowed to take his mask off for speech therapy. He can't see his therapist demonstrate the mechanics of speech. It is nearly worthless. So, first off, this speech therapist needs to be fired. Seriously, this person absolutely ignores the needs of who they are tasked and paid to help. It's lunacy. Like absolute, utter lunacy. But it gets worse. Several severely disabled nonverbal high schooler masked all day, including for speech sessions. Legally blind, but they can't wear or her glasses because they fog up. Continuing on, she requires one-to-one physical assistance to access curriculum. Not possible because aides are not allowed to sit close enough. again, they need to be fired because if they're not going to do their job, they need to go. And last year during lockdown, she had Zoom lessons, including for occupational therapy and vision. Now, how does a teacher for the visually impaired teach typing over Zoom? It's the question that she very exclamationally asked. And I gotta ask, does anyone need this explaining? Because if you do, again, please don't have kids. Marcus, are you back where we can hear you?
I think so.
All right. Sorry to cut you off. What you think about this?
I think it's horrible. Me growing up, I had a speech impediment.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you from memories, I don't think I could have learned with a mask. So much is done by watching and by trying to replicate what other people are doing. That I don't think that's possible without a mask.
It really isn't. Keep going, buddy.
It's tough because on one hand, they're trying to take the safety in their hand, and they have to do the government. But on the other hand, in order for these kids to learn, you've got to see it. You got to watch what the mouth and the tongue's doing. So I hate it. It's horrible.
I mean, these kids already have a hard enough life, right? I mean, any sort of impairment, like, it already makes your life much more difficult just to function at a basic level, right?
Oh yeah.
And so to do this is probably the most heartbreaking one so far. This is from Mama Kay. She says, my hearing impaired son drew this picture in October. He wears one hearing aid, and you can imagine the challenges he's faced. We went back to school in August 2020. Now, I just want you to look at this picture. Marcus, I wish you could see it. Oh, that was not right. Sorry, guys. I was not expecting. There it is. There it is. Look at that. That is sad. No more mask. I can't hear. Like, you could just stop at no more masks. That'd still be good, but yeah, that's awful.
How do you see that and not feel heartbroken?
How do you not feel heartbroken for these kids? Like, I mean, I know my heart breaks for these kids. It breaks for the ones who are sitting outside in, 40-degree weather eating lunch because, kids have a hard time with the virus, apparently, according to Oregon officials. They do not. But, as long as the teachers are safe, as long as the mom and dads are safe, even though kids are not a vector of transmission, as long as everyone else is safe. So NYC State of Mind says no access to the school library. Books are being disinfected at school. No field trips, no extracurriculars, mass sports in Mississippi, outdoor lunch all winter, limited water or no water breaks in class, facing one direction at lunch or silent lunch, no parents allowed in school. And every single one of these, can you imagine any one of these happening before COVID? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that because of COVID, people have just decided to say, whatever, freedom means nothing. But can you imagine any one of these, Marcus, happening before COVID?
I don't think it would have went over so well. I think one thing that we're seeing is kind of conditioning of the kids. I think that's a possibility of what we're seeing, and seeing
to just
how much
accept it.
You learn to control the kids from a young age, and if you can control them from a young age, you can control them for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of their life. So
I mean, they're taught to be scared of not only the world in general, they're taught to be scared of the air around them. They're taught to be scared of their friends. They're taught to be scared of themselves. And I'll talk about this in just a second. But this absolute fear that these kids, I mean, it's not just kids, it's adults, but it's more heinous because it's kids. The fear that these kids have every single day. I mean, I just don't know how kids these days live with it. Well, what do you think?
What does it communists say? The best way to rule is by what?
Force.
with that and fear.
Fear. Okay. The two F's.
I mean, the force causes fear, but you know, you're seeing both of that right now, force and fear.
Mm-hmm.
You're forcing people to wear the mask. You're forcing people to take the vaccine, and you're putting fear into some people in the population that don't do research or this or that. So you're putting fear into some people. You're putting fear into kids. So you're teaching kids early to be forced to do stuff and to fear everything about everything.
Not only that it's okay to do that. That it's okay to treat people like that. That it's okay to pound fear into their hearts until they're terrified to walk outside the door. I walked into a shoe store, a big shoe store with very little people, and it's like I went back in time a year, and there was just everybody, masks, sunglasses. Some people had face visors, and these weren't old folks. These weren't the people that statistically might actually die from this. No, it was young families. It was mothers in their early 30s with kids who were 6 and 7. It's fear all the way around.
When I went to that vacation, I stopped in Atlanta, and everywhere there had a mask mandate. And I didn't even want to go. When I went in, I put the mask on. I had to walk. I wanted to walk out so fast. I went into a Best Buy because I was looking to buy a certain thing. But when I walked in, I'm so used to just being able to walk in without a mask that when I first went in, they said, "Hey, you get a mask?" I was like,
"No."
Wait, what?
You still wear them?
No. Well, here's a mask right here, and I thought to myself,
cool, you can rip it up and then pretend you gave it to me. That's how I want to be with people who want to, force masking.
But it's just stupid. Honestly, if you take away the headlines, the news, and all the restrictions with the mask and the travel, you take away all the restricted stuff and all the masks and stop covering it, you won't even want to know coronavirus is there.
Yeah.
You'll hear about it every now and then when your friend gets it.
Yeah,
but every now and then, every shorter now and then, when somebody you know or love, or somebody you know has somebody they know, somebody's going to get it or die from it. So I mean, but you'll only hear about it every now and then.
Death is coming for us all, and I think people forget that.
If the news stopped covering it, we dropped all the restrictions, dropped the mask. You'd forget about it. It'd be like the flu. You'd forget about it until somebody you knew got it, or somebody you knew died from it.
That's
just
sad.
Like the flu.
And here's the thing, with Omicron being like 70 times more transmissible than Delta, you're going to get it. Wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, wearing a face mask with a shield protector and a respirator and glasses that cover like your eyes and your cheeks and like make you look like some sort of creature from a 1950s sci-fi movie, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. It's going to happen. So stop living in fear of it. It's a cold. It sniffles. There's so much data out there to say this. But it gets worse in the schools. I mean, not the COVID, the schools. It gets worse. So this one, honestly, to me, sounds very culty. So water fountains are off. This lady says, read the 9th Amendment. Water fountains are off at my daughter's school. Masks are required indoors. To get a sip of water, and this is what sounds super culty. To get a sip of water, she has to raise 3 fingers into the shape of a W. So I guess like this, or like for permission, walk to the back of the room, lower mask, sip, remask, go back to the desk. Mask required when PE is in sight. I mean, this is just super culty. And she goes on to say, I tell her to take her mask off if she ever feels dizzy or unable to breathe. And she says the teachers yell at her. They yell at her for taking down the mask so she can breathe a little bit, because I assume she's a middle school, elementary school. So like, this one gives me the heebie-jeebies. I'm not gonna lie. It feels like something cults do. You agree with me, or am I taking this one too far?
Well, I mean, the course may be a little too far, but I do think it does give me the heebie-jeebies.
Well, I mean, the schools are basically just feeder programs. Many schools are just feeder programs for the secular progressive cult.
You're not wrong.
You know, I wonder, hey, Marcus, I wonder what since they are pretty much a cult, what shape they have to make in their hands to get the Kool-Aid. Is it an O for oh yeah and bust through the window or bust through the wall?
Oh, dude, those are the best. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, bring me that Kool-Aid. And then they all just drop like flies.
The term cult, I think, is hot. I don't like using it until it's something, because I mean, it could be so easily. The church can be defined as a cult in a sense, you know. Christianity could be defined as a cult, in some terms, you know, with what we teach, and yada yada yada. So I try not to use the term
Cult too much.
Cult too much, because it can just as easily be turned on us. So I try to use that term in more severity. Yeah, that's just how I look at it.
That's fair. That's fair. Sort of. So here's the last one. This one I actually want to go step by step, because this lady lists 7 things in order, and well, I have thoughts on all 7 things. So one says being yelled at constantly in school hallways for masks falling beneath their nose. 2, not knowing what faces of their peers actually look like. 3, not being able to socialize at lunch. 4, depression. 5, low-grade anxiety. 6, little recall of their life before COVID. And 7 is trauma. So this is a pretty significant list, right? So, I mean, let's walk through it. 1, we talked about this earlier, but a general distrust of authority, which granted is probably a good thing when it comes to government and our big tech overlords, but maybe not when you talk about your moms and dads. So 2, and this one's pretty significant. It says not knowing the faces of what their peers actually look like. So I did some research, and I found this peer-reviewed article from the website Frontiers. It says understanding emotions is crucial for social interaction. Specifically, interpreting other people's facial configurations is fundamental during social development when children learn to interact with others. So the general consensus is that something like 70% of face-to-face communication is actually nonverbal, right? Obviously, with a lot of this being in the face, and if you can't see each other's faces, how do you develop bonds? How do you develop trust? I mean, how do you tell if people are lying? Because it's so much easier to do when people can't see your face. I mean, you can't even show your passion. I can't talk to you with wide eyes and big movements of my face because I'm passionate about something, because of the mask. And kids can't do that either, and it is destroying their social progression and being able to grow in a society. Am I wrong?
No, your facial expressions show so much. For example, sarcasm, which a lot of kids in school are starting to learn and use for the first time.
Mm-hmm. That's a great example.
Sarcasm, a lot of times, is you tell by the way somebody uses their face, with the little smirk they have. But if you've got a mask, then that smirk's not there, that little smile's not there. So, something that so many teens start to do at that age, or middle schoolers, and even older elementary kids that are learning what sarcasm is, and how to joke with friends, it's so much harder to joke and have fun and have that sarcasm because you can't see the face.
No, you can't. And
I mean,
that's it's like, I mean, it's the same problem with texting. You can't have that thing. You can't have the nonverbal communication. But this is forced. You can't go find somebody in school and talk to them to get that face to face like you could if you were just texting them, because you have to wear masks. And it literally stops their mind from being able to expand in knowledge. Moving on, while essential emotion processing is evident in infants, early childhood is considered a critical period for the development of understanding emotions and emotional processing. Continuous developmental changes do indeed occur from infancy to adulthood, as the individual's social environment gradually grows to its capacity, because words are hard, capacity and complexity. So not being able to see each other's faces is going to have long-lasting effects because, again, they can't grow socially. which kind of goes in with the next point number 3, which is that humans are social creatures. So if they're not being able to talk to each other at lunch, but that's when we were allowed to talk when we were in school. Not being allowed to talk at lunch means that, you're not going to be able to talk to anyone at all. You're going to be isolated. You're going to be alone. And that can be contributing factors to depression and low-grade anxiety.
And even suicide.
Well, yes. Actually, I have some statistics on that, and they're absolutely mortifyingly heartbreaking. So it's almost like telling kids that their world is toxic, their friends are toxic, the air is toxic, their own breath is toxic. If they take off their mask, they might die, or they might kill their family, or their teacher, or whomever. It's like it's a bad thing to tell these kids this. All over the fact that the kids don't die from this and they don't spread it. Statistically speaking, did you know, and I looked it up, these are 2 CDC, the next several information points I'm about to give come from the CDC. All of it's sourced from the CDC. So if you're one of those people who believe the science, this is the CDC. If their parents took them on a cross-country road trip, they are much more likely to die from a crash than COVID. In fact, 608 children ages 12 and younger died in 2019 due to a car crash. That is in 1 year. 608, just 12 and younger. 803 kids, this is still terrible, I'm not trying to downplay the fact, 803 kids ages 0 to 18 over almost a 2-year period have died to COVID. So you can see which one's much more deadlier. Also, the 12 and younger doesn't include 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds who are much more likely to die in a car accident. So if they added this in, how high would it be? Much higher than the 803. Now, I'm not saying that any death is good, but we live in a world with risks, and you have to take those risks sometimes. You do. To get around, to be in a society, you have to take risks. So it's time for us to get back to realizing that COVID is an acceptable risk that most people have to take. Or do I need to get off my soapbox, Marcus?
I think you got to realize that, yeah, COVID sucks. Yeah, COVID can kill you. But, if you're that worried about it, there's a vaccine out there. Go get the vaccine. Wear a mask if you don't want to get the vaccine. But
or live your life like normal, because that's what it is. It's endemic. You're going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, just do.
If I had the choice, I would choose neither of those.
Yeah, if you do what you need, do what you fucking need to do. Whether you think you need to wear a mask, if you need another vaccine, you do you. You do that. You do what you think's important. And don't ridicule somebody for what they think is important.
Exactly. Me and you disagree on it, but we can still be friends. We can still talk to each other face to face, because we realize this, and other people need to. Here's the worst thing about this. Go ahead.
Just move on from it. I mean, just do you, shut up about it, and go. That's my thing. That's what I love. That's all I want.
So, this is also from the CDC, and this is very heartbreaking. There was a 22.3% spike in ER trips for potential suicides by children aged 12 to 17 in summer 2020 as compared to summer 2019. And there is a 39.1% increase in the winter of 2020 into 2021 as opposed to 2019 to 2020. That is horrifying. I mean, that's kids doing these things, doing all of this to kids has caused them to want to kill themselves in much higher rates. You don't have a major event like COVID, and then you don't have a major statistic like this and think the two are unrelated. When there's been lockdowns, when there's been social isolation, there's been masking of kids who don't need it. I mean, all of this. I mean, I was texting my girlfriend when I was writing the show notes for this, and I said the same thing, and that is truly horrendous. I mean, Marcus, what do you get?
Well, I mean, especially for people like me, 'cause I'm very social. Extroverts, in other words, and I got ADD, so I can't stand sitting at the house and doing nothing. Thankfully for me, when everything started, I farmed, so I didn't have it. I took
You were on the tractor all day.
Yeah, I had to work. There was no, oh, well, you got to have 2 weeks to not work. I didn't get none of that. I had to work.
I didn't either, by the way. I was in Lowe's talking to people face to face.
But it would be devastating for me to not be able to talk to friends and to not be able to communicate with other people, and it'd probably throw me into depression, because I honestly enjoy communicating with people, talking to them, and it's like even when COVID was going on and we were still scared of it because we didn't know what it was. We wanted to hang out and talk so much that you came here to my barn and we ate.
We ate some good old Sunnies.
Yeah,
also not sponsored by Sunnies.
No, we're not. We could be if they wanted to, but we're not.
I will be opposed.
No, but we took precautions when we did it. We ate 6 feet apart in the open. I mean, and that's who I am. I love to see my friends, and I love to hang out with them and talk with them, and that's part of me.
And it was respect.
You take that away from kids.
Exactly.
That's horrible.
That's horrible. And kids can't get away. We're adults. We could decide, hey, we can do this. If we need to implement safety measures, we can do that. We're adults who can do this, and we did. Kids can't do that. If their parents say, go to your room, you can't talk to anybody, you can't see anybody because you might kill them. What's that gonna do? That's child abuse. That's all it is. It's child abuse. Going to get through the end of this because this was a long segment and we have a lot more to talk about. Yeah, we have 3 more stories.
Segment due to this.
Yeah, we have 3 more stories that we're going to try and get to. It's going to go a little long. So I think this guy ended up proving an argument counter to what most of his Twitter page is about. Kids don't need to be in government schools being subjected to the hell the progressivism causes these schools to become. This cult that requires 3 fingers just to get a water. The best thing for these kids is community, playing in the park with their friends, while their parents are sitting around, socializing with other parents, and scowling at their kids when needed, but also being happy when the kid who is too scared to try the monkey bars finally gets up and realizes that it's not that bad. Community, being sociable, and parents fighting for their children is what needs to be happening to counteract this awfulness. Quick last word on that, Marcus.
I think I got everything I wanted to say.
You got it? All right.